Go ensure that somebody else out there doesn't feel alone and doesn't need to live in perpetual fear. If all of us do that, that's what changes this country, and that's what creates a team. So let me take off the clown mask now. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's been a tough spell. It's been a tough spell for a while for me, and I'm incredibly appreciative. When we do these live shows, so U of M as an example, it was really, really hard. Required getting a lot of people out there. It's a 17-hour drive. Most of us flew one way, drove the other way to try and kind of pass it off. Some things could have gone better that we had issues. We've talked about, if you remember Mug Club, with the union members at U of M who didn't let us get in when we were supposed to get in, so that we're aligning everything. It takes a crew of 12 people. It was very hard and very draining physically. And listen, not cancer, nothing like that, but I'm not a guy who likes to necessarily get into, my health it's not in the best of sorts right now. These are things that can be corrected, but serious enough to warrant, I've taken really two sick days in the history of this company. A lot of the time when people see we're not doing it, they don't realize this, we're rebuilding something, or we're actually pre-taping something, like a Change My Mind. We just can't do a show the day we do a Change My Mind, or doing U of M. That was days and days of prep and getting out, several days of travel. There might be some more, and you know what? Let me know who you would like to see as a fill-in host. Not right now, but probably around Christmas break. And one thing I will say, though, doing these live shows, which can be really exhausting, and they really can, the reaction, the interactions with the fans, the people are really incredible. The people who support the show, Mug Club, it was crazy to me. It was at least 60-70% of people at that theater. And by the way, it overflowed. Thousands of people were Mug Club members.
Oh yeah,
So that's not even just non-Mug Club members, because the Mug Club members get their hours in advance. So that's always, it really is a team of people. We really do feel like it's familial, and we're overwhelmed by the support. But I also do notice an ongoing theme, and you've probably seen this in Q&A, particularly with the upcoming election: fear, a theme of people being afraid. And a lot of different people, they find different ways to get over them. A lot of people find that this show helps them. I had some people say, listen, man, I am so tired of news and politics. This was a veteran who talked about how he had been suicidal. I actually have a Navy Cross there. We haven't figured the perfect place to put it yet, so it's just safe. So thank you, sir, again for sending it. But we're going to put it right next to it would be fitting, the Ultimate Warriors action figure that Mike Ward gave us. That next to a Navy Cross. That crystallizes this show. Some people say this show helps them. It's really important, though. This isn't obviously the only one. Therapy is probably better than this show, because everyone on the show needs therapy. So it's important you understand the difference between being afraid, and I don't always get the chance to answer people this way, and being afraid of something and being fearful. They're two different things. And on this last segment of the week, it often ends up, I think it ended up being branded Crowder Closes, because people were uploading it anyway. I want those dollar bills. So I try to be vulnerable. I try to be earnest. Because I don't think lies help. I don't think being completely disingenuous helps. I don't think false ego helps. And because I know a lot of you out there might be experiencing some of the same pain and fears that I've gone through, or that I'm going through, or people even here sometimes in the studio. So if it helps you, it'd be wrong for me to keep it to myself. And I think a lot of people often go, don't be afraid. Oh, listen, be brave. But they don't really tell you how. And if you have some, let's say it's, The Rock or someone like Daniel Cormier. That's why I really appreciate the interviews with Daniel Cormier, because Daniel Cormier is a world-level ass kicker. And on this show, not always, but on this show, he's been very vulnerable about what it is that scares him, about the fact that he's nervous before every fight. Very specific. And I tell you what, for me, that inspired me. I don't know about you, but hearing Daniel Cormier say, I get nervous before every fight, I didn't feel so bad about, throwing up or painting the porcelain before every single live show. Quarter Black knows this. I don't enjoy speaking live. I get very, very nervous.
But when you get up there, you look really good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the lies. Check's in the mail. It will clear. You needn't say this. It's going to clear anyway. just like a black belt from Steven Seagal. Your check cleared, and I'm amazing. So if it does help you, the way Daniel Cormier, Brian Shard, George St. Pierre, Thomas, so we've had a lot of great people here who've actually talked specifically about things that either scare them or difficulties they've overcome. That's been something that's been inspiring to me. And so I'm just going to be honest with you. There are a lot of things that scare me, but I don't live my life. Let me go through it. And I'd like to hear you guys tell me what it is that most scares you. Going out on a limb here. And I know it'll be used against me eventually, but I also know that there's someone else out there who probably feels like they're alone, might think that they're at the end of their rope, and maybe this will help. So it's one person, it's worth it. I'm afraid of being alone. That's something I'm really afraid of. This idea, people talk about being alone in a crowded room. We often hear it in sound lyrics. That often happens. I can be surrounded by a lot of people and not really know who a friend is or know who necessarily cares about me. And especially when you have so many supporters, and I'm grateful for them, you're always afraid that goes away and that there's this sort of dead still of quiet. I've always been I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of burning out. It's one of my worst fears. I'm afraid of burning out. Like after University of Michigan, and again, when you have kind of health struggles, nothing serious, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. I can always get up and do the work that I need to do as far as, okay, show up, hit the mark, do the sketch, fine, write the joke. But when you don't have anything to aim for, sometimes it's really hard just to think up right now, okay, where are we going to do the next change? What's the next super video? Where are we going to go on location? Because so much needs to be planned. And it's just like, a lion tamer. It's the different legs of the stool that keeps the lion completely confused. That's the only reason that this circus clown is not getting eaten. I get overwhelmed sometimes. I'm afraid of burning out. I am afraid of not being deserving of this platform. Frankly, I'm afraid of that. Something I've always been afraid of. I see the faces. I see people who come up when they tell me their personal stories and how much this program means to them. I really am grateful, but I think I often feel undeserving. I work really hard. Again, I try to be honest with people. I probably work harder than anyone I know, and that's kind of a reputation in the industry if you ask other people. I'm a Clydesdale, not a show horse, clearly. Not an Arabian prancer, dancer, whatever it is. All you equestrians, I don't care. Go do your dressage. But I'm afraid. I often feel undeserving of the platform. I'm afraid of mistakes that I've made which have harmed others, and I don't necessarily know what they are. Sometimes when you're in a leadership position, this keeps me up at night. I'm afraid that I've made mistakes that have caused ripple effects, and they were mistakes that I could have avoided, especially when you have employees and you're in your mid-20s. You make mistakes. Mistakes are okay, but I have trouble sleeping sometimes when I think about, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. That's something that bothers me a lot. I'm afraid of the Brazilian wandering spider. That goes without saying. I'm afraid of not knowing when I've done the right thing. That's something that's hard. Afraid of the mistakes, and sometimes not knowing if you've made a mistake or done the right thing, because sometimes you make a decision that you have to make for someone else in the team or someone else in your life that negatively affects one other person. Sometimes it's just like we don't have that much room in the lifeboats. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and sometimes you think you have to make hard decisions, and it's just wrong. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid, frankly, I used to have a bad temper. I'm afraid of it coming back. I'm afraid of Mr. Hyde rearing his ugly bisexual head. That was a short phase. No, I'm afraid. Afraid of getting angry. Afraid of being too emotional. Afraid of being obsessive. Because of that, I'm afraid of alienating friends, family, people who I care about most. Something I think about a lot. Sometimes with a lot of pressure. Sometimes with a lot of compression comes hypervolatility emotionally, and I'm afraid of pushing people away, especially when you have people who you love who either work with you or in close proximity. I'm afraid of, and this is why you might have seen that there was a pause at U of M. I'm afraid of having children. I'm really afraid of having children. I said I don't like kids. That's not true. I like kids. That's a smokescreen. I kind of don't like sticky kids. But I'm afraid of having children. Deathly afraid because of thrusting them into a life that they didn't choose. I've had a lot of close calls. I've had even just not close calls. I've had very unpleasant encounters. We've had people who just work for this show who've been spat on. We've had people get violent with them. Even at U of M, we had people trying to start a bar fight for people who weren't even on stage, but they knew worked with the crew. I'm really afraid of having children and bringing them into that. It's always been something that bothers me. And because of that, something else I'm afraid of the fact that my fear of having children could cause irreparable damage with a wife who I know deserves them. I'm not saying I'm never going to have kids, by the way. I'm just saying it's a fear that I struggle with. And I know a lot of people struggle with these fears. We talked about the church groups often when people aren't honest. I need to be forgiven for being a workaholic. I spend too much on Facebook. You know what? No, I'm telling you exactly what I'm afraid of. I'm telling you what my weaknesses are, because I know, and some of these are actually things that I feel as though I should have expressed a long time ago, because I constantly encounter these at live performances where people say, you know what, I really struggle with this and you help me with it. I'm going, you know what, I should just tell people. I should just tell people that I struggle with that. I should just tell people that I struggle with burnout and fear of that. Or I should just tell people that I'm afraid of having children. Because it might help them to not feel so alone. We hear that so much from the left. Oh, don't be alone. Only they try to tell you shouldn't feel alone in your depravity. I'm telling you shouldn't feel alone in being afraid of things. But hopefully there's a solution that we'll get to after this. I'm afraid of all of this going away and 15 people being out of a job. That's one thing that really scares me. If I'm undeserving and it all goes away, or you say the wrong thing, that can happen to anyone these days. We've been really blessed. There's 15 other people who rely on Mug Club and your support, not just myself. That's something that's really scary. Let me end on this. I'm afraid of not being able to discern the things that I can control and the things that I can't, and wasting energy trying to fix things or trying to contain things that I can't control. I'm really afraid of not having discernment or not having perfect discernment. I think that's what a lot of these fears stem from. And even more, I think I'm afraid of not fixing the issues that I can control. And that would be even harder to live with. So it's just this never-ending cycle of what can I control, what can I not? And if you can control it, you better do something about it, because people are relying on you to fix this. And if it's out of your control, you're spinning your wheels. And the people who are relying on you, they're just going to see you burn out, and then you can't help them. It's a really difficult thing to break. It's a really difficult cycle to break. I'm afraid of all of these things. And Snake Island. But I don't live in fear. And neither should you. And I hear this a lot, particularly with this election. You shouldn't live in... It's okay to be afraid of things. Everyone is afraid. Bravery is doing the right thing in the face of being afraid. But living in perpetual fear is different. Just like people tell lies, but lying to yourself consistently is corrosive to your soul in a way that is very different from telling somebody they don't look fat in a dress. Living in a state of fear is different from being afraid. You do not have to live in fear, regardless of the election, because you're not alone. And not only are you not alone because of whether you believe in him or not, God says that you're not alone. But let's get out of, what people may see as corny sort of metaphysical bumper stickers. If you're watching this live right now, okay, look at how many people are watching live with you. If you're watching the show afterward, just look at how many subscribers, Mug Clubbers there are next to you. Take solace in knowing there are millions upon millions of people right now in arms with you. And you know why those people have hit the subscribe button? You know why those people have bought this? Listen, it's awesome. It's hand-etched, it's girthy, it's hand-painted. This is just a symbol. You know why millions of people have supported this program? It's not because it's funny. Every now and then we get a few right. It's not because people feel as though this is the only place they can go for political information or insight. Millions of people have signed up because they have been through something similar to what you are going through or to what you have been through. Look at that subscriber count. That's the ceiling right now on YouTube. I just lost my pen. The ceiling for conservatives on YouTube is our channel, right? And that's also a burden that scares us, because we're going, man, we're changing the blueprint every single week, and we're trying to do right by you. Elections fluctuate. And we get so many emails, especially in the life advice, but what do I do with the election? I feel that our country's done. I hear that every single election. Elections change, parties change, and it goes back and forth. But win, lose, or draw, whether it's this go around or the next go around, you're not alone. You don't need to live in fear. Do you feel better at all? Does that help you feel better? I know sometimes these are supposed to be feel-good segments, but it doesn't really matter, okay? Because whether you feel better or not, that's the truth. So take it. If you feel better, good. Now it's your obligation to help the next guy. Go make sure today, right now, if you're listening, if you're watching this show, immediately, pause this. There's only going to be a few seconds of music afterward anyway. You don't even need to hear it. You've probably heard the song a million times with Pogo. Pause it right after this phrase and immediately go ensure that somebody else out there doesn't feel alone and doesn't need to live in perpetual fear. If all of us do that, that's what changes this country, and that's what creates a team, and that's what gives people not only self-belief, but belief in their values and belief in real change. Make sure today, right now, this is the last phrase, I'm getting near the end of this now, name that movie line, that you go out and ensure someone else doesn't feel alone and doesn't have to live in fear, because that's why we do this. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, or if you want to continue to enjoy free content, support us at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, where you get the full nightly show. An hour every day free, along with all of our friends' content. If not, you don't want to do any of those things, you're probably just here, you're watching me seething. You came here to hate watch. That being said, the internet was created for people like you.